Hello, welcome to another episode of Buffzone. We're coming to you from our awesome Liquor Mart studios here in Boulder. I'm Ryan Thorburn, this is Brian Howell, and we cover CU Hoops for the Boulder Camera. Brian, the CU women's team got off to an unbelievable start, 12-0, on the fringe of maybe getting some top 25 love, and then kind of back down to reality as the Pac-12 season's underway now, and they find themselves at 2-3. What do you make of Linda Lappy's second team so far?
Well, I think they beefed up their record quite a bit on a non-conference schedule that frankly was not very good, and but they got better. I mean, I think they're better than they were last year. It's just they've had some challenges. Frankly, last week they played probably the two best teams in the Pac-12. Had Cal on the ropes, up by 12 with 12 minutes left, and just let them go. And end up getting blown out, actually, the last 12 minutes of that game. And then they played Stanford, that's the number 4 team in the country. So I still think they're a good basketball team. They just kind of, they need to learn to finish games better. If they could finish games better, they'd probably be 4-1 in the conference right now.
It seems to me, and obviously I'm covering games on the other side of the conference while you're covering their games, but it seems to me that Chucky Jeffrey is fitting into this conference really well and is maybe an all-conference player this year. Talk a little bit about Chucky and how her game's advanced under Linda, and what kind of help does she need to make some noise in this conference going down the stretch?
Yeah, I definitely think she's an all-conference player from what I've seen to this point. Stanford shut her down, but that's because she's not getting the help that she needs right now. I think CU right now is very easy to guard, by a team like a Stanford, because you can concentrate on Chucky Jeffrey, shut her down, and nobody else is really stepping up and helping her out. So that's what they need. I mean, they've got to get somebody to step up and be a consistent 12 to 15 point scorer. And frankly, they probably need a couple of girls to do that. I mean, Julie Seabrook got to do that. Somebody else inside, maybe one of the Wilson twins, Lexi Kressel. Somebody needs to step up and be, get 12 to 15 points consistently, or else what happened to Chucky against Stanford is going to start happening a lot. But she's definitely an all-conference player. One of the leaders. I think she's one of the only players in the conference, if not the only, that ranks in the top 5 in points, rebounds, and assists. And if you can do that, that's pretty impressive, especially when you're a point guard.
Looking ahead quickly to their road trip to Arizona, it would appear that this is not make or break, but a big road trip as far as, are you upper half or middle of the pack or lower half, depending on sweep, split, getting swept. Your thoughts on this week's games?
It's definitely big for them, especially having lost 2 in a row. Their next home game is against USC, which is arguably one of the 2 best teams in the conference. So their next home game is very tough. So you've got to get at least a split on this trip. They start with Arizona State, which was an NCAA tournament team last year, and then play at Arizona. So, and it's not an easy trip because they actually come home in between the games. It's kind of a weird trip because they play Thursday at 11 a.m. Because it's one of those games where it's a promotional game to get some school kids to the game, and then they don't play again until Sunday, so they're going to come home. So they actually fly out twice a week. It's almost reminiscent to the old Big 12. Where they've made 2 trips a week sometimes. So it is going to be a tough one for them, but they've got to get at least a split. I mean, there's no choice. I mean, if they don't get a split, you can almost look at this is going to be a long rest of the season.
And segueing to the men's team, you mentioned the Big 12, and that's a good place to start. Tad Boyle mentioned after their loss to Stanford, the men got swept at Cal and Stanford, as the women were swept as well. He said the environments so far on the road in the Pac-12 do not compare to the Big 12. And, and I was at those games, and he's right. The students really weren't that engaged, and the crowds were far from sellouts, and they basically play in refurbished gyms instead of coliseums. So the problem that CU ran into was they probably played the 2 best teams in the Pac-12 on the road, and I think reality set in. They're 3-2 now, but I still think they have a dominant home court advantage. And Arizona State on the men's side is not very good, so that's their opponent Thursday. So what I'm looking at is CU being 4-2 going into a big game Saturday against Arizona, who's a lot like CU as far as counting on freshmen, lost a key guy to the NBA, has a great 2012 recruiting class kind of in transition. Very similar teams, RPI almost identical. So Saturday's game, I think, is huge for CU. They have to win that one. It's like the Washington game.
Yeah, do you think the Buffs, I mean, with them, the men being home, do you feel like they need to get a sweep this weekend?
Yeah, I think CU needs to win all of their Pac-12 home games to finish where they want to finish, which is in the upper half, and maybe even contend for the conference. I think that's possible. I think Tad Boyle's now 27-3 in Boulder, and a couple of those losses were very tight games against Kansas and Texas A&M.
Right.
So I think CU's the kind of classic college basketball team that's dominant at home and just looking for any kind of traction on the road.
Do you feel like they've done a good job of replacing Alec Burks or finding that replacement for him?
Kind of. I think Carlin Brown, they knew, the one-year senior transfer from Utah, they knew he would help a lot, and he has. I think Jeremy Adams has been somewhat of a disappointment. He got off to a slow start because of the concussion. And Skia Booker and Dinwiddie are hit and miss because they're freshmen, but their futures are very bright. So it's been tough, but I think obviously Alec made the right choice, and I think in the long term that's going to help CU with recruiting to have a guy in the NBA lottery pick. So we'll see what happens Saturday. It's a huge game, another huge week for both teams, and we'll be back next week to talk about it. So make sure you follow the coverage at buffzone.com, and we'll see you then.